Please be advised that in order to foster quality discussions in each episode, we will spoil the stories in each game and text we talk about. Good news is, 90% of the titles we cover are old enough that many of you might already know all about them. That said, we do encourage you to play and read before listening.
Listen up now, when you leave on, get ready for Arcade Bookshop. Read your book, and play a game, check it out. Don't be late, listen up now, when you leave on, get ready for Arcade Bookshop.
I can't stop thinking about how you made fun of me for copying everything you were doing when we were in Columbus.
Yeah, you did copy it. Every meal we went to, you ordered the same thing. Every beer.
The thing is,
I'm so cool. I know.
We have similar tastes. And the first place we went to, I picked the sandwich. I was like, "Ooh, that sounds good." And then you said, "Ooh, the turtle soup sounds good too." And I was like, "Oh, that does sound good."
When do you ever get turtle soup?
We didn't even know what turtle soup was, and if by chance there was actual turtle in there, that would have been delicious.
It didn't taste like turtle. It tasted like beef.
No, it was beef, chicken, and something else.
It was delectable though.
It was really good. And then for other stuff, it was it was just ribbon that we were wrapping our wives' gifts in boxes with, but we both liked red. Sue me for choosing red after you chose red.
I don't know. I felt that was a deliberate choice on your part. You looked at me and thought, "Oh, no, I got to go red because that is nice. That guy knows ribbons."
We're buying gifts for our wives, and I just felt like it's an appropriate color to be away for a whole day and then come home late at night. And
You know what's funny? I think on that whole trip, I don't believe either of us ate anything different from the other. Like, we went to the Ethiopian restaurant, ate all the same goo. We shared a big goo meal. We had beer flights, and we had the same exact beers so we could review them.
There wasn't even an option there. They had two options for flights. One had sours and wild whatever, and the other one was like IPAs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't like IPAs that much unless they're like one-offs that are like.
I don't want a whole flight of IPAs.
Yeah. So it was like the whole time before leading up to ordering that, I was just like, he's gonna rag me about ordering the same damn thing as him. But how could I choose? I'm not just gonna choose things that I don't like just for the sake of not copying.
To be fair, at least at the bookstore, you bought different books than I bought.
I did.
If you bought the same books, that would have been pretty stupid because you could just borrow the book I bought, or vice versa.
Right. Well, anyway.
That has nothing to do with what we're here to talk about.
No. But I do have another random thing. I was just thinking about how a lot of the games we're doing right now are all like retro games mostly. Mm-hmm. And that's mostly because that's what's most accessible to both of us. Mainly because you don't have I guess you can get some of the other systems, but from you've had them. But it's just what you can readily play, because you have the emulator.
Right.
I thought it would be fun, and maybe this isn't necessarily going to make any permanent decisions for us, but I was online and I found these wheels, if I can get on the internet. Oh, no. We'll have to do it off air unless this one works.
What is the spinning wheel I'm looking at?
So this wheel we're looking at, it's a random game chooser.
Oh.
And there was another one before this.
Gobs of Games USA? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Gobs. I've never heard of games referred to as gobs.
These are all Game Boy Color games, just this one in particular. But I found it was like a Reddit post that it showed this guy just randomly, because he was bored, made roulette wheels for certain older systems, and then to correspond with that, he made a roulette wheel for like all of the games on each of those systems. That way you can randomly choose a game to play if you don't have the ability to do so at the time. And I thought it would be fun if, although I didn't have the foresight to remember that.
Connect to the internet.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea, though. I like that.
Yeah.
That also takes choice out of the matter, and it just leaves it to chance. So we
Right.
both could end up playing a terrible game, a great game, or one in the middle that we would never pick normally.
Exactly. I think the odds are, because there's so many retro games and systems.
I'm gonna say, is every single line a game?
It is.
It's like you can't even see the lines. It's like infinite.
So the one this one's working right now just because it was left up on my computer, but the other ones, the browser went down. So like right now, it keeps
ESPN International Track and Field.
Yeah.
I don't. What book would coincide with ESPN International Track and Field?
I just thought maybe
the Jesse Owens biography, maybe.
I just thought maybe we don't even have to read a book with it if it doesn't work.
Just do the game.
Yeah, maybe just like a 20-minute episode or something like that.
That could be a fun little mini series.
Yeah.
Randomly generated games.
Just an offshoot.
I'm sure a book version of this exists too, or like short stories. That'd be cool.
Yeah, probably. That would be cool. That way we don't have to be like hard pressed thinking about a book and a game that match. We just do like a pair of randos.
Right.
Yeah.
Some ESPN Track and Field erotica or something comes up. Like, wow, I don't know about that.
Well, maybe we can splice in after we record this. Maybe we can connect to the internet, record it, and actually spin in this and add it to the end of the at the end of the episode or something like that.
All right, we could do that.
Yeah, and then just going off of this, it would be cool if later on we could add some newer stuff. Like not brand new, but if there was a way that we could play some more updated games.
That would be fun. I want to do that.
Yeah. Because like I'm playing, I mean, I haven't been actively playing it, but I was playing BioShock again at home just because they had a really good sale on the trilogy. And that would probably be an easy one to pair a book with.
Right.
But
there's also a lot of cool Steam games out there that you haven't played yet.
There are. And you as well.
Yeah, I've only played one Steam game so far, and I've been playing it a lot. That's a Fear and Hunger game.
Yeah.
And also I found out, spoiler alert for anybody who's not played Fear and Hunger, when you beat the game, you get a code that leads you to a new game.
Oh.
It's called Dungeon Knights, and it is a dating simulator with all the horrible characters from the game. You're in high school and you're trying to get a prom date. And so that's what I'm playing now. It's ridiculous. So you get like all the characters that rip you apart and kill you and stuff. Now that you're trying to date them and stuff.
Oh wait, so is it like a graphic dating game? Like
no, it was originally meant to be an adult dating game, but now it's like the art style is cheap anime, and it seems pretty harmless. You still can go in the dungeons and fight and probably get murdered real bad, but it's not as bad as the regular game. And I don't think, as far as I know, there are no exploits because they're supposed to be in high school.
Oh, that's right.
So it should be okay, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, you still see nudity just because the characters, a lot of them are naked for whatever reason, but they're gross, so it's not like... But this wouldn't be a game you would play without playing the original game. And if you play the original game, I would hope you're an adult because that game is brutal.
Yeah. I thought maybe we could do it because I don't really want to play it.
It's so fun, though.
But, yeah, I just don't want to play a gross game. But I thought maybe
dismemberment.
I thought maybe we could do an episode where you and I just maybe you just tell me about it.
That'll still be an R-rated episode.
No, it will, but I don't have to play it that way.
Okay. Hey, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Maybe it can be like a closer to Halloween kind of thing. Yeah.
I will just say this for the listeners. In that game, there are monsters that blank, and then they blank, and then they put a blank in your blank, and then blank you to blank, and then you blank, and then until you blank all over the blank. Just putting that out there.
I've seen it.
Yeah, I've showed Bryce. It's 32 bits, so it's not like it's going to be graphic, really, in the graphic style aren't going to be graphic. It's not going to be gross in that way, but you still see what's happening. And I showed Bryce, and
Yeah.
it is still disturbing, to say the least. But it's
Yeah,
also
it's
a very
pretty-
cool game.
It's pretty weird. It's kind of weird to see the like 16-bit graphics made to be something so
It's like playing Zelda, then
disturbing,
they're doing things that shouldn't be done in a game
yeah,
like that.
because it like you see 16-bit graphics and you think of, if you're like our age-ish, you think of like childhood things, and that just
It does throw you off a little bit.
it doesn't mesh in your mind.
It's a disturbing game, but it's definitely worth the play if you like RPGs and dungeons and horror and that kind of stuff. Fantasy.
Yeah, it does look cool. I just
It's very
the
cool.
graphic part of it is just like, I don't need that in a game.
I mean, every
but
part of it's graphic, so
Yeah,
most of the
I mean,
villains you fight
yeah, I
have their
guess so.
wieners out, but they're also
it looks cool. The art looks cool though.
yeah. But most of like the graphic nudity, it's like gross nudity, like. So you have wieners, but they're giant leg-sized wieners that can stab you and stuff. You have boobs, but they're like old saggy witch breasts. Like it's nothing in there is anything you want to see.
Yeah,
It's all pretty gross, but it's still very graphic. Do not let your kids play that game.
yeah. Welcome to Arcade Bookshop. Where we
By the way, I
about-
like how we're going to be discussing a very wholesome game
yeah.
by all metrics compared to what I was just talking about.
So welcome to Arcade Bookshop, where we talk about video games and their literary counterparts for all of you who love to play and to read. I'm Bryce Yoli, and as always, I'm here with my pal and cousin-in-law, Caleb James. Today we're talking about Final Fantasy IX, originally released in 2000 for the PlayStation 1. So, why we chose this game? I chose this game.
You chose this game. I've never played this game.
Right. We kind of talked about that. But the thing is, I thought it was still fair. That, I mean, we both try to play each game and read each book, or have played and read each book. This time, Caleb, at least, you backseat watched it with your brother.
Yeah, he played. I've played a little bit of it when I was a kid, but I never made it through the game. I remember getting stuck at like this jump rope scene that went on forever, like you're jump roping and counting the jump ropes, I think. And I feel like that went on for an eternity, and I just didn't play beyond that, I don't think.
Yeah, that was like 5 minutes into the game.
Yeah, so
I got stuck at
the
that
very
point.
beginning, because I remember some of the characters and the general plot, but I never actually played the game through,
Yeah,
and I probably never will.
that's fine. It's long. It's hard. It's hard. It's a hard thing to play when you're an adult, unless you really want to devote the time to. And that, I mean, that's, I'm doing it. But I've played this game through like 3 or 4 times. This was like my favorite game of all time for years. It might still be. Although this last playthrough, I think it felt like it felt as though it might be my final playthrough.
Yeah, your Final Fantasy playthrough.
Yeah,
It is your Final Fantasy.
correct. It didn't have as much substance this last playthrough as it used to growing up. I don't know. I still enjoyed it, and I think it's always going to feel, especially the music and everything, it's always going to feel like really nostalgic to me.
The really long cutscenes.
Yeah, and they aren't terribly long. I think the worst
There's a
part,
lot of
actually-
them, aren't there?
Yeah, well, the actual cutscenes, there's not that many, like the ones that are actually animated.
Oh, okay.
But there are a lot of like where you're not playing and you're just reading.
Mhm.
I was like, after getting used to the progression of games up to modern day, and like, you know, getting used to the fact that everything is voice acted now, and then going back to like when I played Earthbound, it didn't really faze me that much because there's not that like all that much story to it. Like,
Yeah,
it's-
it doesn't. It's not one of those ones where you have to read for 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah. So when I was playing Final Fantasy IX, I was like, damn, I'm reading a lot. And I like it, but at the same time, it's like I think, especially after playing it so many times, as many times as I did,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to move on, just like progress as fast as I can, because I've experienced the story already. Like I already get all this stuff. I know where everything is, all that. It really feels like it takes forever, and some of the stuff you have to read, but it's just not interesting. At least like on my playthrough.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still love it. I'm always going to. I think the music always really hits home for me.
Well, from my understanding, this is the black sheep of the Final Fantasy PlayStation games.
And I didn't know that, and I thought I could be mistaken, but I thought I listened to something recently that said that this was like insanely popular, or maybe it just got insanely popular after the fact.
It grew over time. We discussed this very briefly off air. The creator of Final Fantasy, this is, I think, his favorite one, at least when it came out. He believed this was as close to what Final Fantasy is supposed to be that they have gotten to. Like, this was his real vision of Final Fantasy. This wholesome type of fun, nostalgia-styled game. Whereas a lot of, like, Final Fantasy VII, you know, it's kind of a little darker, a little more hardcore. And a lot of the Final Fantasy games are like that. But around 2000 when it came out, it was the edgy time, you know? Everyone was very edgy and emo, and they wanted hardcore steampunk and just stuff like that. So going back to an old-style fantasy game with knights and heroes and saving the princess or the princess saving you, those kind of things, people didn't want that. So it actually wasn't, by the numbers, it didn't do very well when it came out. But over the years, it's kind of gained like a cult following and has become one of the most popular Final Fantasy games. But it's still the black sheep because when it came out, no one really wanted it, but the people who played it really loved it, like you.
It's interesting, and I obviously didn't play it when it came out because I was only like 6 years old, but I played it later on because my brother had it, who is like roughly, he's probably a little older than you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a few years older than you. This might just be my own deduction, but when I look at Final Fantasy IX, to me, it looks like Final Fantasy VII and 8 combined.
Yeah, I kind of get that.
Because, and there's actually a line where they reference the main character of 7 and 8 in early on in Final Fantasy IX too, but I guess that's kind of beside the point. It just looks to me like they came out with Final Fantasy VII, and it was supposed to be this. It was supposed to be huge, and it was like, I mean, literally, like the world was supposed to be huge. It's like super involved. The story was supposed to be intense, and they accomplished all that. But one big thing about it was that the story was over everyone's head, at least if you're an American.
Yeah.
It was kind of it's probably more along the lines of, I don't know, like a Japanese like theme, or the kind of story they would tell, or wherever it came from. But
Japan.
Yeah, I figured. I just wasn't sure, but
well, yeah, there's a lot of Japanese mythology and some references and the creatures and just the general way the characters act is a lot of it's based on Japanese anime, mythology, culture. So us dumb Americans, especially at the time, there was a little bit of a distance, you know, there's a little bit of a gap between our understanding completely of the game compared to the Japanese understanding of the game, but we still got to have a lot of fun with it.
Right.
Which you could probably say about most Final Fantasy games, I would think.
Yeah, well, they're all great, except for like the first one, maybe.
Sidebar, when I was looking up on YouTube, I just typed in Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And the main, like, a whole list and the recommended come up. 16 seemed to be the biggest one. Then Final Fantasy VII. And nowhere on the list was Final Fantasy IX. It was like the one that was not brought up when I looked.
I don't understand.
And even the videos, when I looked it up, there were a lot of videos that were really, really long on Final Fantasy IX because I guess the story is so complex. I didn't look at the other ones, so I don't know if they're similar, but I'm talking like hour-plus videos of just describing the story alone.
Jeez. It's funny because the way I was going to approach it was that like 7, super complex. 8, like, from what I understand, totally missed the mark. I only played about half of 8 before.
I played 8, and I could not remember anything about it. I remember I didn't really like it.
Yeah, cool. I think I got to, like, I only didn't finish it because our third disc was scratched, and I couldn't keep going.
I forgot about that. Yeah, for our younger listeners in the old times, you had to put multiple discs to play a game. You had to switch the disc.
Yeah, and that was always it was cool though because at least I mean I Well, I did it with 7 and 9 because you get to those points and you're like, hell yeah, I'm getting to the next. Like you
I'm
feel
progressing.
accomplished.
They used to do that with VHS tapes too. You'd have Titanic. I remember. I think it was a 2-pack.
Yep.
And you had to put in the second VHS, and you're like, what is happening? This is a
Right.
long movie.
I think we had that too. But yeah, and I felt like, I felt similar about 8, even as much as I did play. It was just really like dull and boring. I don't know. But for 9, I felt like they made it for Americans.
It definitely is more palatable to the American audience.
Yeah. And the point I'm getting at is
It's closer to like a fairy tale story too.
And it just feels like it does end up getting really complex towards the end, but I don't think it's like all that complex in comparison to like 7. Like I know generally what 7's about, but I couldn't sit here and tell
there's a
you
lot going on.
what the plot is really. I know they're like ecological protesters or whatever. They're.
I think 7 became so popular. Well, one, that was probably the first Final Fantasy game that came out that had like those kind of graphics, which look terrible now, but when they came out, it was revolutionary.
Right.
But mainly Cloud with his giant sword was an awesome looking character.
Yeah.
And he had a cool name, and people were like, yep, that is badass. And then they just forgive any faults the game might have had because it's just, at the time it was just amazing. But Final Fantasy 9 does not really have a character, at least from what I watched, that's very memorable like that.
Well,
I mean, in like a cool way. Like, we'll discuss it later, but we have like the Vivi character, which is like a black mage. He has a distinct look that's kind of cool, but he's not like a badass, he's more of like a Mr. Popo from Dragon Ball Z. He seems like the fun side character. He doesn't seem like he should be, a cool main character, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that goes into a major point that not a major point, but one of the main themes of the story is just that it's about having a team and like it's about doing things because you should, even if a person doesn't seem like they should be a part of your group. I guess that's.
Well, there's a lot of people in the group as the game progresses that end up going off on their own way for one reason or the other, and it's most of them have a character arc where it's like, oh, I don't belong or I don't need anyone, the typical character arcs we get in stories, and then it always ends up with them, oh, I do need these people and they need me and I'm accepted. So you get that. A lot of it's about acceptance and identity.
Yeah, definitely identity is something we're going to get to. But before we go on, the book that we're pairing with this we thought was a good match is which we'll talk about next week. It's going to be American Gods by Neil Gaiman. And the main reason we thought these two paired together, which mainly because of the gods.
Yeah, the gods.
It was kind of a forced pairing because I was reading American Gods, Caleb had already read American Gods, and I was playing Final Fantasy 9 just because I wanted to.
And you wanted to read American Gods.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make these two go together, and I did. But as I was reading I finished the game first, and I finished American Gods afterwards. And as I got to the end of American Gods, there's this one part which we'll talk about more in depth next time. But there's one part that I was like, holy crap, this actually really matches up with one of the ending scenes in Final Fantasy 9. And it made me feel a lot more confident about pairing these together for the episode. But ultimately, the main thing that they have in common, initially anyway, is just the gods, which is a commonality in every Final Fantasy game. I think you always have in your battle system or whatever, you always have your summons or whatever they call them. In this game, they call them Eidolons.
Yeah,
or however you say that.
And they're like the bad guys are trying to steal them from the characters.
Right.
Well, this game gets like the basic synopsis or how it starts is very not complex, but it's definitely out there. You have a planet called Terra, I believe, and these planets have like these life crystals inside of them that when people die, their soul goes into the crystal, and the crystal sends their soul into a new body. So it's like a reincarnation type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then the crystal gets weaker and sicker, and then people, I guess, they stop the cycle, and humanity's going to die out. So one character, what is his name? Garda or the bad guy?
Garland.
He takes the crystal to another planet, Gaia, I believe. That's where our characters are mainly located. And he just injects this crystal into that planet, which already has its own crystal, and the crystals are competing. And then he has to rig it up because, the lively crystal of that planet doesn't need this old dying crystal. So all the souls are going to that one. He blocks the souls from going to that one, which creates a huge mist over the planet. And then, industrious as these people are, they use this mist, which is kind of fucked up. They use the mist to fly boats on. Like, they have these boats, these airboats airships that can go on the mist, but the mist is just tortured souls pretty much. Like, it's kind of messed up when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
So they're just flying on the souls that weren't reincarnated, and it's just like, oh, it's terrible. But that's like the basis of it, and this old dead crystal, I guess, is taking over for the new one. That's just how it starts. That's not even the actual story that unfolds. That's just how it starts.
Well, it's how it... Well, since you haven't played the game...
Is this before or after the jump roping?
Well, that's before the events of the game start.
Yeah.
But you don't even find out about that until towards the end of the game. I mean, pretty much at the end of the game. The last third or quarter at least. At the front end, it starts out, the game's about a group of thieves who go under the guise of a traveling theater company to kidnap the princess of Alexandria. And it turns out the princess wants to be kidnapped because something has made her mother, Queen Braun, go crazy. She's getting hostile. She's planning a war between the nations of their planet Gaia, and the main character you play as is part of that theater company, the group of thieves. His name is Zidane, who ends up being accompanied with other characters who want to protect the princess and find out about themselves and save the world. That's essentially what it is. But the interesting thing about the wars that are beginning is you find out a bit later that much of the reason behind it is just to cause chaos, to bring about the summoning of these eidolons, so that Queen Braun can steal them for herself and gain power. And I was going to say earlier, the interesting thing is that in every Final Fantasy game, it seems all of the summons or the eidolons or whatever you call them, they all have god names from actual mythology. And they never really, at least from what I can tell, they never really explain why they're called what they are. That's just what they are.
Right.
But it's cool because not all of them, but almost all of those summons, the eidolons, the names they use, all of them are characters in American Gods.
But it doesn't make any sense why they're on another planet.
No, it doesn't.
Nor does it make sense why we have an Alexandria. Was Alexander that great that he conquered Gaia at one point? I need answers to this.
There's a lot of unexplained things and just becauses in Final Fantasy games, I think.
A quick diversion. If you're writing fantasy, it is very hard. Or sci-fi, if you have something set on an alien planet, there is no Earth, that doesn't exist in your world, but you still have to use names that we're familiar with on Earth. If you look at it any deeper, it makes no sense. There's no Alexandria on Gaia. Who was Alexander in that area?
Well, I think the other thing is I think they call it Gaia, but I think it's supposed to be
Earth.
Essentially Earth.
It could be,
because
doesn't Terra also mean Earth?
It does, and I think there's probably something there that I didn't have the time to delve into.
Laziness on the writer's part.
Between calling me lazy and...
I was actually calling the Final Fantasy writers lazy, not you.
Oh, okay.
About having Earth and Earth.
You know what? I hear lazy, and then I think it's about me.
Just drink your pickle beer, man.
Yeah, it's delicious.
It's pickly.
Now I forget what I was talking about, Caleb.
You weren't talking about anything. No, you were talking about Gaia and how...
Oh, well, I was just going to say, in the game, there is context riddled about it that says it takes place in the 1800s, And this is obviously not the real 1800s. It's like a steampunk version of it, or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of steampunk anyway. But I think there's a degree of it like taking place in like an alternate Earth.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's all like complete fantasy or on a different planet.
From my viewing of this game, it seemed that the creators, like you mentioned earlier, how they kind of made this towards American audiences, they seem to have westernized the story with the fantasy elements especially. So you have a lot of like Britain fantasy styles with like knights and castles and things like that. And then, I don't know, I'm going to assume, not having watched every part of the game nor having played the game, is there any kind of American West part in this game? Because they love to do that in those kind of games where you have one guy that has guns and he shoots them, or he has a cowboy hat, or they do that in some games. I'm sure there was probably a forest area where you have forest creatures or something that you deal with.
Yeah, there was that.
There was probably some kind of ice mountain or some point.
It was an ice cave.
I don't think Final Fantasy is known for water levels, though. Because I know a lot of games, especially the old NES games, always had a fucking water level.
The only thing I can think of in this one is there's one where you're kind of in like a cave, sort of, and there's water you have to deal with, like you have to manipulate it to get around. But I don't think there's an actual water, like underwater or anything like that.
Good.
I don't think so.
Can I blow your mind real quick?
Okay.
In Neil Gaiman's Stardust, they have a airship.
Do they? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they do.
I didn't read that, but
And it's a damn it. That probably would have been a really good comparison for this game.
yeah.
Neil Gaiman's fairy tale book. He has an airship. You have a princess. You have I don't know if this game, does it start off in a small, Alexandria you said, but does it start off in like a small contained town and then you spread out? Because that's what Stardust does.
So kind of. So like you're not necessarily stuck in the town, but you start on one continent, and then as the game progresses, it opens up to, I think, 3 others. So yeah, it opens up like that. Yeah.
So American Gods and Stardust combined make this game.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I haven't read Stardust.
It's really good. I'm not a big fan of fairy tales, but it's very good.
It probably would have been better just for like simplifying all of this.
Yeah.
But because both Final Fantasy IX and American Gods are like pretty complex, detailed stories. But I really liked American Gods, and it's gonna be fun to
so
talk
good.
about.
It's really good.
Yeah. I'm gonna run down mechanics and gameplay and stuff real quick. I don't think there's like a whole lot to say about it because this isn't mostly a story-driven game. And if you've played a Final Fantasy game, like you know what it is. And
Standard
what you do,
RPG,
especially at this point in the series. It's still turn-based, which you still have the skill learning thing, which they started in Final Fantasy VII, I think. You have to, there's the grinding like in a typical RPG. There's world exploration, which is in every single one of them. There's lots and lots and lots of reading. And like I said before, I almost forgot how much reading there was until I had to do it all again, a 4th time. There's tons of secrets, which is always like one of the coolest parts of Final Fantasy.
all the Easter eggs.
Like how they hide things or reference the other games. For me, on my 4th playthrough, already knowing where everything was pretty much and how to get it all, it wasn't that exciting. It's just kind of something I had to drudge through. But if it's your first time playing it, it's always fun to have to like hunt for things or figure out the puzzles. Although sometimes they do it. They set it up in a way where it's like no one could possibly ever figure this out without cheating. But somebody obviously did because someone had to tell us how to do it on the internet.
Could have been the game designers. There's certain games that have come out where like 10 years later, or even immediately, if people just can't figure it out, the game designers are like, hey, this is what you have to do to solve this, or this is the secret that you're missing. They've had to do that because sometimes they get a little too complex.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the game designers are the one who write, because back then, 2000 era, that's a lot of game guide walkthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there was a Final Fantasy IX walkthrough that somebody had to come up with that tells you everything.
Oh, actually, I'm pretty sure it's Final Fantasy IX. I didn't even have this in my notes to talk about, but since you brought it up, I think they made Final Fantasy, the strategy guide for Final Fantasy IX at the time where the internet was really starting to ramp up, and it turned out that like people bought this strategy guide, and then like 50% of the book, if not more, was just constant references to the internet. It was like, oh, you want to know how to do this?
Look
Go
it
to
up
the
on
website
the internet, yeah.
for free.
You already bought the book, though.
Yeah.
Just tell me how to do it in the
It was,
fucking book.
like, useless. So, because I was actually thinking about getting it just to have it, because it's my favorite Final Fantasy.
It's probably like $100
Yeah,
now.
well, and it's worthless. I don't even know if it is, just because it's. I mean, I don't know if they consider that stuff like antique and valuable or anything, but I don't. I think you would still find it like at the exchange or probably half price books.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, another common thing in all, I think all Final Fantasy games is chocobos. You know about chocobos, Caleb?
Sounds familiar. Are those things you ride?
Yeah, the yellow like giant chicken things.
Yeah, the giant. Okay,
Yeah.
yes, I'm aware.
Yeah,
I didn't. Why? That's so weird that how things stick in your memory sometimes, because you said that name and you could have been speaking another language, but for some reason, deep in the recesses of my brain, that chicken thing came up in my head. I was like, wait a minute, is that right? It can't be right, but it is right.
Yeah, and they they're actually a big part of not the game, but there's this whole side quest in the game.
You don't have to race
And
them, do you?
No, you do, and that's in 7.
Yeah, I know. I'm just
Yeah.
saying you don't have to race them, do you?
No.
I remember, that's why I
It's-
hated them.
In 9, it's chocobo treasure hunting. So you go to like these certain forests, and you just have to like wander around the little map of the forest area you're in, and I think you just jam like X or square or something. And well, for me, I play the port for Switch, so the controls are different, but. Yeah, you just mash the button. You watch what the chocobo says when he pecks down on the ground.
Yeah.
And depending what his text looks like, when he gets to like all capitals, the thing they say is "quay."
Quay.
So stupid. But if it's all caps, then it means, or it's mostly caps, it means you're near it. And when it's all caps, it means you found something. And then when you found something, you just jam the button.
Stupid.
But it ends up that you find things like chocographs. So it's a little clip, like a frame of like a photo of a certain part of the world, and you have to go find wherever that part of the world is, and go hunt there with your chocobo in the world, and find treasure outside of the forest. And it sounds so stupid talking about it, and I feel like an idiot.
But it's fun.
It is, especially your first time doing it. This last time, like, I'm just gonna keep saying that. The last time, it was like it really got on my nerves, and I was
Torture.
like, yeah, and like I knew how to do it all, but I was like, I've done this all 1,000 times. I'm looking it up. I couldn't remember the specifics, but if you're just looking at those frames, it's just like you can't. I mean, you could have eventually figured it out, but it's just not worth the time. But anyway, doing that is how you find like 3 of the ultimate weapons in the game for the main characters, and it's
Stupid chocobo treasure hunt.
You like have to, yeah, you almost have to do it.
Is this game the same planet as the Final Fantasy game? Or are these intergalactic chicken monsters that are just on all the planets?
Is the Chocobo game the same?
No, the Final Fantasy 9. Is it the same planet, Gaia? Is that Final Fantasy 7?
I think they're all different. I'm
But
not
then why are the chickens
positive.
involved?
'Cause
That's
it's
what I'm
Final
saying. Is it
Fantasy.
intergalactic chickens? Are these things
Yeah.
everywhere?
I guess so. If you
Have they
wanna-
conquered the universe, but are just very bad? Like they inhabit all these planets, but we don't really
maybe that's,
acknowledge that.
Maybe that's a whole separate theme that we can explore at a later date.
Is there a Dune version of those stupid chickens around, like where they're just going to different planets and living?
Dune?
Yeah, like
Like-
Frank Herbert's
Yeah,
Dune. We're going
yeah.
to different planets. We have these kingdoms that have to conquer different planets or just live on different planets and rule them. Are these chickens like that, but they're just not very good at rolling stuff, so they just have treasure hunts and races?
It might be. And if that fan fiction isn't out there, maybe you can write that.
I'm just saying there is somewhere out there a lore for these stupid chickens of why they exist on different planets.
Or
They didn't just evolve on different planets like that.
yeah, or what the planets are between Final Fantasy games because they're all wildly different. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
That's okay. Let's move on.
Okay. So my biggest complaint about this game, but only about the Switch port, which is actually, I think it was originally a port for like mobile devices. My only complaint is they added this feature where it adds like 3 or 4 just cheats to turn on at the corner of your screen, and it's just always there. And if you're not careful, you can bump it. And I kept bumping like battle help and stuff like that. I don't know. You can like max out your health. You can always be in trance. And if you don't know, trance is like, it's like when you go, it's sort of like when you go Super Saiyan, if you know Dragon Ball Z. And you just turn like a superhero in battle, and you're just invincible, kind of. You get like additional attacks that you can't ordinarily use.
Japanese love their Super Saiyan, don't they?
Yeah.
They just love characters that they just get souped up in fights.
But I gotta say, it's fun. It's fun doing that shit.
You want to know what my only complaint is?
What?
5 minutes of jump rope. Why is that there?
I think you get playing cards if you win.
I just remember there's like a numbers. 10,
Yeah.
11, 12. It just
I
goes
didn't
on and on.
I didn't even do it this time. I did it before. It's just one of those like fun little things at the beginning of the
Fun?
game.
Did you say fun?
Well, at the beginning of the game, when you're just you're like edging yourself into it. You're like just getting into the groove.
I don't think you can get away with that in a modern game.
No, it was a different time.
You can't have an extended jump rope scene
'Cause
now with the internet because people they would just like have a button. They'd hook up their if they're playing on a console, they'd hook up their controller so there's a button that just presses every time or whatever, so they wouldn't have to just sit there and watch it.
Yeah, well, you probably could have done that back then too. I don't know, but
I didn't have the technology, Bryce.
listen.
Get one of those remember those bird toys that just like went up and down and oscillated? Just sit there and peck
Or how
the
about
button?
that? Did you ever have that other Super Nintendo controller with all the switches and buttons on it, and you could just you could just you could have it just auto jam a button?
No, Bryce, because I'm not a cheater.
A lot of people had that, Caleb.
I wasn't a cheater. I wasn't one of those fucking turbo soy boys that sit there and just turbo everything.
I didn't like that controller, but it was a cool thing.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people talked about it.
I had a Game Genie. I did cheat. That's for the Genesis, but still.
All right, 45 minutes into this podcast, let's talk about some real shit.
Okay.
We could probably talk about this game for like 9 hours because there's so much. I want to focus on just a few things. Some things that I noticed, that I've always noticed, especially, are themes of identity and mortality or the fragility of life. The reason that I say that is that most, if not all, of the characters all throughout the game.
Spoiler.
We're doing the spoiler thing ahead of it. We're gonna insert that at the beginning of every show.
You recording your spoiler alert and just
I'm
put it
gonna
at the
do
beginning
it.
of every
I'm gonna
episode?
do it on every episode.
All right. And then
it's
I'll just be the jackass that brings it up every episode
You're
until they
always
start
gonna
coming
be
up.
a jackass,
Well, that's
and that'll make up for the fact that you're always making fun of me for copying off of you.
if you'd stop. What kind of beer are you drinking now? Is it one of my pickle beers that I'm drinking?
It's
Or
the
is it
same one that you're drinking.
So it's not your own pickle beer. It's my spicy pickle beer that you're drinking. Go on with your mortality.
I'm just gonna go back to the fact that we have very similar tastes, and it's good taste.
That it is. I will agree with that.
Anyway,
Both like the Gilmore Girls too. Shut up and don't judge us.
it seems like all of the characters, or most, if not all, have similar like questionings about themselves and where they came from too. Zidane has no idea where he actually came from. He had an adoptive father.
Weren't most of these just characters
Yeah.
dropped out of an airplane? Basically.
Yeah, well, Zidane was literally, I think.
Wasn't Vivi? He fell out of one.
Did he? I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure he because he was raised by a big fat guy.
Yeah, he was raised by because there's another character. I don't know if you saw this character, the character Queena.
Yeah, they get married. Well, you can make them get married.
Yeah, but it turns out you find this little cave like late in the game. You find out that Vivi's grandpa, the one who raised him, is actually the same race as that Queena character. Yeah. Which nobody knows what the hell they are.
Jar Jar Binks of the Final Fantasy universe.
Right, yeah.
But then, because I'm pretty sure he got dumped out of an airplane. I think then the princess and the little girl also get dumped out of airplanes or like flying things. Like, don't they all just get found?
Well, the little girl didn't. Eiko or Eco, I don't know what she's called.
Like the princess, because her race, they have horns on their head. Mm-hmm. She got her horn cut off, and she was adopted by the king and queen, I guess. But the little girl, I forget, she didn't get adopted, but I swear they were all dumped. Even if they weren't, I'm saying they're all dumped out.
Dagger, her Princess Garnet's nickname is Dagger. Dagger showed up in a boat in Alexandria, I believe.
And they got dumped out of that boat.
And they found her.
Oh, what a surprise.
You're just chastising me this entire episode because you haven't played this game.
I don't like not being in the know. I do know they ripped off Chrono Trigger and every other series that has a princess that has a secret identity at the beginning, and then the main character finds it because her hair probably gets lit on fire or something dumb, and her wig falls off.
That's probably another Japanese theme. It's probably not that they ripped it off.
They always do that. There's always something with their wig falls off, gets ablaze, gets wet, and then it's like, oh my god, it's the prince. I would have never known because her hair was a different color. It's so dumb. Dagger, go on.
Well, with Dagger, the actual princess got sick and died, and then this Dagger shows up as a little girl or a baby or whatever in this boat, and her mother died because of the storm or whatever.
The game's very depressing, by the way, if you didn't catch that. It's so wholesome, but then everybody just dies.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody dies, but people die.
A lot of the most lovable characters.
I don't think that's necessarily true. Anyway, I'm having a hard time getting to my points here.
Yeah, I don't know what you're dilly-dallying for.
Screw you. So she had a horn. They cut it off, and they just wanted to, they wanted to pass her off as Princess Garnet to the people, and they just raised her as the princess because she was a twin of her basically, except for the horn. So they cut the horn off, and they just raised her as the princess.
What purpose could a horn serve a humanoid?
Well, in the game, this chair is very squeaky today.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. In the game, the horn, you find out once you meet the little girl, Eiko, the horn is like a direct connection to the gods.
Is that what gives them their Super Saiyan's power?
No, but Eiko she has the power to like speak to them, I think, if she wants to. And she can, so she has she's really, I mean, in the story anyway. I hate playing with her as in the game, but from what they explain, she has like a direct line to speak to them and to harness their powers and everything, and anything you want to do with the gods, the Eidolons. But anyway, back to identity.
There's too much in this game.
There's way too much. That's why I want to focus on this one thing. So Zidane doesn't know where he came from. Dagger doesn't know where she came from until late in the game. Vivi was dropped off somewhere.
Doesn't know what he is either.
Right, he doesn't even know what he is or why he is similar to these black mage soldiers that look just like him. They start building these black mage soldiers to attack in these wars, and eventually you find out that those black mage soldiers have a finite lifetime, which is like 5 years or something like that. It's a very short amount of time, probably less than that.
Which is very troubling for a creature who gained sentience and wasn't just a lackey like the other ones, which there are more that come up later on in the story that they also were able to think for themselves. But because he was raised by, not a human, but, humanoid creature,
right.
He was able to think for himself and be his own person, and then he has to find out later on after going on this grand adventure that, oh wait, I'm going to die soon. I don't get to live for a long time. I like it's kind of hard hitting. It sucks. Depressing.
Right. You do find out later on that Vivi is like a beta version of these black mages, and they didn't like that he. Well, I forget all the details, but I know they wanted to make something that had less of a soul than he did, and that didn't live as long, so they were more disposable if need be.
Yeah. Why they dumped him out of an airplane?
So that's Evie. That's Vivi's struggle. I hope I don't keep saying Evie.
Yeah,
stepdaughter.
Vivi.
So that's Vivi's thing. Oh my goodness.
Vivi. Just call it Big V.
And it's with almost every character. I'm not going to run through all of them, but I'm going to bring this one minor character up. I don't know if you read anything about Sir Fratley.
No, I don't think so.
So Sir Fratley is like basically like a love interest of the character Freya. You read about her? No. Freya is from this other city called Burmecia. They all look like horses or something like that.
Oh, good lord.
Anyway, yeah.
There's so much.
Like if any episode of this podcast makes us sound like nerds, it's this one.
It makes you sound like a nerd. I didn't play this game.
All right, excuse me. Makes me sound like a nerd.
Nerd.
I feel like I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons right now.
Yeah.
No offense to anyone who likes that. I just don't know anything about it, and it always sounds so complex.
Yeah, it just sounds like you're just sitting there like Caleb right now, and you just have this slightly blank stare. We're just like, yeah, he's saying words, but I don't know what they mean.
Anyway, Sir Fratley is comparing him to most of the other characters. He seems like one of the most leveled out characters. Like he before the time that you meet him in the game, he used to be like a solid knight for Burmecia, and I think when the wars first started out, he left Burmecia to travel the world to keep the peace as well as he could. But then even with him, even with this one person that you meet that is confident and powerful and certain of what he is, where he came from, and what his purpose is, by the time you meet him in the game, he has amnesia and doesn't know who he is or anything about his past. And for Freya, who is in love with him, when you finally meet up with him, she's totally distraught, and then she's like, "What is my life without the person I'm in love with?"
So his whole arc is, I don't know my identity. I have amnesia. And then the princess is, where do I come from? And then blonde hair guy is, where do I come from? And then Vivi is, where do I come from?
And we can open it up even further. And we're gonna.
Oh. Is it going to bring in Steiner?
I don't feel like talking about Steiner.
Oh, come on. He's the only character I liked.
Oh, really?
No. But he had a big sword. Or no, he was a knight.
Yeah.
And I just like his name, Steiner. Reminds me of Rick and Scott Steiner from wrestling.
Oh, okay.
Big Papa Pump.
I don't know anything about that.
Well, you're missing out. Anyway, go on.
So earlier we were talking about, Caleb was talking about the crystals and the planets, how they were like, maybe we're getting too involved here. But anyway, I won't take too long on this because this is just so convoluted. But
It's stupid. It's too much.
I hope you're enjoying this.
It's just too much. Why did the
Listeners.
crystals, like, that's where I draw the line. Why do we have these crystals?
I wasn't even going to talk about the crystals because
it's the framework for the whole universe that we're in.
Right. There are crystals, but
It's literally the catalyst for why this story is begun.
The main thing for me is the planets are merging. They want to merge the planets. And
it's not how planets work.
Oh, God. So this Garland guy that you don't meet until like the end of the game, he's from the other planet Terra. Terra is older than Gaia. Something happened with Terra, I think. Well, yeah, I think Terra's life cycle is that they always merge with planets to continue on.
It's a parasite planet.
Right. Basically. And the people of Terra actually, this is kind of like lore. I don't think they fully explain this in the game, but They might, or maybe I just missed it. But supposedly the people of Terra actually built Garland to preserve Terra. Garland started building other genomes, they call them, which is what Kuja is. I don't know if we talked about Kuja
We didn't
yet.
mention Kuja and his thong.
Kuja is this very effeminate gentleman
G-string wearing
who
purple guy.
wears almost nothing, but
His clothes are purple, not him.
they're like white and blue in the actual game, but not that
It doesn't
anyone
matter.
gives a shit about that.
I think he turns purple at the end or red or something.
Yeah, he turns red. My whole point is Garland also created Kuja to help him in the process of preserving Terra and merging the planets. Kuja is the one who ended up influencing Queen Braun to start the wars to begin with.
And she went crazy.
Yeah, and the whole thing was that he knew she would go crazy, and he would be able to take all the Eidolons from her and end up lashing back out at Garland because he finds out that he is also expendable and it has an expiration date. So the whole genome thing, Garland created genomes, which are like they're like empty vessels for the souls of the old souls of Terra to flow back into. He created Kuja, who is an actual one with a consciousness or whatever, sentience, but he had flaws because he didn't have the ability to develop like a full breadth of human emotion. So then Garland ended up creating Zidane also, and Kuja ended up throwing Zidane down to Gaia.
Threw him out of a plane.
Basically.
Yeet.
And that's why Zidane doesn't know where he's from, because he's from another planet they didn't know existed.
How strong are these babies, though? They could just fall out of the sky and
I'm
be
sure
okay?
that's not actually what happened.
I could have sworn they all fell out of the sky. Maybe they all landed on soft
maybe,
stuff. I don't know.
But I like playing the game again. I don't think I actually realized how that all comes together for the longest time. Like I kind of got the gist of it
Yeah.
playing it before, but this last playthrough I was like, oh, this all goes together. Like everyone has no idea who they are.
It's too much.
And I don't know if you knew this either, but like almost all of the characters, the main characters anyway, Garland, Zidane, Vivi. Vivi's only 9 years old. Zidane and Garland are 16. Or not Garland. Zidane and Dagger are only 16. You know, a lot of the characters are really young, and they're all having like
Existential crisis, yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty young to be talking about mortality and worrying
Right.
about death.
Right. And then if you even wanted to go a step further, you can talk about the identity of the planet. Because it's like, I thought that was profound.
I mean, it's too much.
It's too much. But if you're playing the game, it's not too much.
Yeah, because it unravels over 40 hours.
Right. I don't know. I guess I can just...
I got the
Be
gist
quiet.
of, yeah, I think I got the general gist of,
At the end, you fight God.
oh, I did not know you fought God.
You don't literally,
I thought
but
it was the god of death or something.
I don't know. It might be.
It was death. It wasn't God.
It just
fight
very
death.
much seems like you're fighting
Death. You fight death.
God.
And you beat up death.
But you fight Hades, too.
That's death.
No, but at the end, you fight this other thing. I don't know I forget what the
Separate.
name is. It's just this floating thing in the sky.
Oh. I think how I'm like correcting you like I played this game and know it all.
Right.
I don't know. If you're listening
You
to me,
know
folks,
shit.
I'm just like the thing about the babies falling out of the airplane, 100% true. That exactly is what happened. But, you know, other than that, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, anyway,
Looks like a cool
Sorry.
game. It's a fun game.
it is a cool game.
It
I
looks like
highly recommend playing it at least once. It's gonna have if you
it's gonna make you cry though. It again, spoiler. It ends with Vivi's letter because he died. He got married. Well, you can make him married. You don't have to get married, but he finally accepts his mortality and his finite life on Earth or Gaia or wherever he is, and he writes a letter that I don't know. I didn't read the letter, but what is it about him dying and accepting it and. He was happy that he met his friends along the way and all that stuff.
You know, I never realized that he died.
Oh, God. How do you not know he died? That was the big
So-
part of the whole ending.
No, because it's not like an explicit thing they say that he died.
His time ran out.
Yeah, you figured that was gonna happen. I thought maybe he didn't. His time wouldn't run out. but anyway, I don't know. The only thing they show that letter. I don't remember what it says exactly, but they do show that he had kids, and his kids they look exactly like him.
Yeah, I thought it said something about the kids that live on in his memory or something.
Yeah,
and they're little VVs.
Maybe I just never. Maybe by that time I was tired. And
you were too ready for the Z-Man and the princess to get Dagger to get together and be happy.
Yeah.
Because she runs through a crowd and he's like, hey, and they hug it out, probably.
I like love stories.
They smooch? I bet they smooch.
You know how many times I've seen You've Got Mail?
I don't think I've ever watched that movie.
Oh, it's so good.
Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
I know the scenes.
Yeah.
But I don't think I ever watched the actual. I might have a long time ago, but that's. I don't know. I never really liked Meg Ryan. And I don't want Tom Hanks to be a romantic man.
You don't want him to be a romantic man?
Nah, his head's too square. Too rectangular.
He's good at that, though.
He is good.
He's good at having a square head.
He's good in everything. He's good at having that shaped head. But the point is, this game is definitely worth the playthrough. Even though I haven't played it, I can already tell I would like it if you can get past the jump roping.
Yeah, you can get past the jump. You don't even have to do that, Caleb. You're really dwelling on this because you've never played the fucking game.
I like that. I like that because you played it. You get so caught up in this giant unfolding tale of just greatness that you can't see the inconsistencies and the stupidity of certain things that I get to see because I have never played the game. So I can sit there and go, well, why are there chickens on every planet? Like, why is everyone falling out of planes? Like, I can look at these things, but you're just like, no, it's a really cool story, man. And I'm like, but there's jump roping.
So stay tuned for our next episode.
I'll be able to talk about the next episode a little better, probably.
We're going to be discussing what we decided for the purposes of this podcast is Final Fantasy IX's literary counterpart, Neil Gaiman's novel American Gods. And maybe Stardust would have been better, but we're doing American Gods.
I can't believe I didn't think of that until because I didn't know there was airships in Final Fantasy IX.
And I didn't know anything about
princesses or anything.
I've seen the movie previews for Stardust.
Yeah. Literally, the smallest amount of research on my part would have solved that problem. If I just did anything before yesterday.
Yeah.
When you told me to. Last week when you told me to check out. Because I knew the story for Final Fantasy IX was going to be so epic and sprawling that I would not remember any of it if I did it a week ago. I had to do it yesterday.
And I assumed there would be a lot more video stuff on YouTube about the game than there was when I was looking for it.
There definitely is a lot of documentary style stuff.
I just thought that someone would put like what's the word? Like a collection of all the
cutscenes,
the dialogue scenes, so that like just the story stuff. I thought for sure someone put all that together, but I couldn't find anything.
Well, the playthrough I watched was just like kind of like scenes. It might have been what you described, but it was an hour and 6 minutes long. Yeah. So I was not watching.
I mean, it would.
Much.
Maybe that would be it. It would be fairly long. It wouldn't be like that. It would probably be about that long.
Let me ask you this, Bryce.
Okay.
So you were saying by the fourth playthrough, you were a little bit bored reading all of this dialogue and all the story unfolding. You're like, all right, I know it. I don't need to read it. Now imagine if you never played the game and you're watching someone else play the game and you have to read all that dialogue about a game you're not invested in because you're not playing it. How boring would that be?
You could have said, let's not do this game.
Well, I wanted to do the game because then I have to play the game. You like the game, man.
All right. Well, you know what? Going forward, I want you to be interested in both.
Well, what happens if we do a game that I play that you don't play? Then we could have this could switch.
Most of the time, I will play the game.
And then you
I
could
just
be
don't want to play
cantankerous.
Fear and Hunger.
Oh, it's such a good game.
Yeah.
Brutality.
Yeah.
Adult themes.
I just don't want adult themes in a video game.
What if it's you say you want to play modern? How's BioShock not adult themes?
Well, like I'm fine with like gore and stuff and like talking about it. I just don't want to I don't want to have like pornographic stuff in a game.
Hooey.
Yeah.
Hooey. You can avoid the pornographic stuff. You just don't know how to unless you play the game. You can play the dating simulator version then.
Okay.
That's probably better.
Don't you have to beat the game to get to that? Or
yeah,
no?
Well, I get the code. I know the code.
Okay.
Anyway.
If you want to do a podcast on the dating simulator of the game.
It's very stupid. So yes, we are going to be covering American Gods on next week's episode.
Mm-hmm. And if you're enjoying the show, which I hope you are, I feel like this one was pretty fun, even though it was stupid.
I think people will enjoy it if they made it this far.
So be sure to follow or subscribe or whatever it is. And as soon as we establish a social media presence, be sure to follow us and watch for us there. I always say that every episode, and I know I sound ridiculous, but I'm just not into social media. I stopped doing it a couple years ago, but my wife is going to make a social media something for the podcast, and she's going to run it. And when that happens, I assume I'll set it up by the time we're actually putting these shows out, and we'll be out there. And it'll be stupid that I even keep saying this. So hopefully I sound like an idiot every episode.
Just like me saying the spoiler warning when
exactly.
you insert it at the beginning, and it's not a thing yet.
Right.
But it will be, and then I'll just sound dumb.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so, yeah. And then you can also look for our playing and reading schedule in the show notes so you can play and read along, which should also be in the intro that I put out before all the other episodes. And,
do you think when the first episode drops, if you have the social media up or newsletters or something, that you can post the whole, at least like 5 episodes or 6 episodes in advance or something of what we're going to do? Because some of these games, like Final Fantasy IX, will take a long time to play, especially if you got American Gods to read along with it, which is not a small book.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I could probably do that soon. Because we're getting up to, like, I don't know, we're approaching 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because unlike my podcast where it's like a week before we cover a book, we're like, oh, yeah, by the way, we're going to read this book, and then nobody reads it with us because we're stupid. Like maybe if you did at the beginning of the month, someone would be like, oh, yeah, I'll read along with you guys.
Yeah, I can do that. And I'll try to figure it out so that when we, like, along the way, I'll try to do the same thing so there's enough time for all of you to try to keep up with us if you're at all interested. And if you have any game and book recommendations, please email us at arcadebookshop@gmail.com to let us know your good ideas. And let's not forget Caleb and his life outside of this podcast.
My other podcast, the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. You can check out us and our literary discussions, our book discussions, our reviews, our nonsense. We go on and on about all kinds of topics anymore. Our last episode, which probably is 15 months ago by the time this actually drops, was about AI taking over the writing world, and it's dangerous, and how you can defeat the AI. You want to know how, Bryce? Go listen to the episode. You can follow us at DPW Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and never Threads. I'm not getting the Threads. Maybe Blue Sky if I can never get accepted that.
Wait.
The new social medias, Bryce, you're behind.
What's never Threads?
Threads, just Threads. I'm never going to be on Threads.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because if you delete the Threads, it deletes your Instagram.
Yeah.
Stupid. And you can also follow me at calebjamesk.com where I publish my actual growing publishing history if any of these things ever get released.
Yeah.
Maybe when this episode drops, I'll have some that get released. But until then, yes, check those out.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. Go stick a controller in one hand and your book in the other. All right. The roulette wheel. We're spinning to pick a game system, and then we're spinning to pick a game from the system.
Spin.
A random
that
game.
Wheel. Yay. I don't know if that sound actually picks up on here or not. It'd be cool if it did.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh.
Good Lord.
That was loud.
Again, I don't know if that music's going to pick up either, but that was excruciating. I was so happy. N64 is what we landed on.
N64.
That is the system.
This will be a maybe because we have limited access. You have access to these.
I can play some 64 games. They work. It's the controller that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, let's try it and see what it comes up with. I know I have access to the ones that are for free. Well, like that you get with the Nintendo subscription for the Switch. So, okay, and we're spinning for a game.
Spin that wheel.
Oh.
That was less enthusiastic this time. What?
Why are these all sports games?
Walla Walla Country Club True Golf Classics. Read the manual USA 11.
Spin that wheel again.
That was terrible. I'm not playing golf. Paper Mario. Read the manual. Why do they always say read the manual?
I don't know. We'll
Paper
say Paper
Mario.
Mario and see what we can do.
I don't remember Paper Mario 64 being a fun game.
I don't know, but I think I have access to it, so let's...
Let me look up Paper Mario
Okay.
and see exactly what kind of game it is. I thought it was a... I don't remember what I think it is. Paper Mario game series. Yeah, it's RPG.
What?
It's Mario's RPG game.
Is
So it's
it?
like a long, drawn-out game.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you look like you're made of paper, I guess. Let's play... We gotta play Mario 64 if we're doing that. Oh, not Origami King. What is that? So, Paper Mario 64... It's just a RPG where you look like you're cut out of paper.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever played that game.
I never played it. Yeah, I think it looks like it's on Nintendo Switch Online, so I could probably play that. That would be a fun one. I'm glad we got a one that wasn't sports or foreign.
Yeah. What are we going to read along with it? Or are we not doing a reading with it?
I don't know. Maybe we'll figure that out and tag it onto a different.
Read a Italio Calvino book because it's Italian. Well, it's not Italian, but Mario's supposedly Italian.
Yeah, that's close enough.
Mario, and Luigi Mario.
So there
The
we have
Mario
it.
Brothers.
At some point, we're gonna be playing Paper Mario.
Yay. I'm excited.
I'll get excited.